I had someone reach out and ask me to make them a card holder using python leather. And I'd never used python leather before. It seemed like a fairly interesting challenge. So I went online and I found some, and it's very beautiful, but it's also very thin. It's extremely thin. For comparison, this Italian Pueblo is about 1.5 millimeters thick. The python leather is just over 0.5 millimeter thick. So what does that mean? That means I need to reinforce this python leather. And by reinforce, it means that I need to basically glue it on top of this leather. So it's almost acting as a veneer. And when I make my card holder, the backing is going to be this maroon color, and these front pockets are going to be the python. And if they're glued together, I will also need to reinforce by stitching the top line here. So that is the project at hand. So I'm going to start by identifying where I need to glue by just kind of roughly drawing a line in the shape of the python. Okay, so that's my glue area, and that's my glue area. My typical glue of choice is this Eco Weld, but for this, I'm gonna need something a little bit more aggressive. For this, I'm going dual 88. The reason I don't normally use dual 88 is because the fumes from this are fairly harsh. Kind of give me a headache, and I've heard it can be a little bit tough on the nervous system. I don't know if that's true, but I don't really feel like testing it, especially when there's other glues out there that are much easier and less fumey. But again, for a project like this where I really need this to hold for, years, I'll go ahead and just deal with the fumes just for a little while. And now we have reinforced python. Now, I acknowledge that I'm choosing design over efficiency because the choice to make all of those the same so that there's a unified pattern going through the card holder means that I had to cut everything right down the middle on this part of the scale pattern, which means there's a lot of waste left on the sides. So I'm not sure what to do with that. I will figure out something to do with it. Okay, so now we can kind of see how this is going to come together, and it looks pretty cool. Normally I would go straight into edge beveling and skiving these pockets, but before we do that, we actually need to reinforce this top bit where they're glued together. We need to reinforce it with a stitch, because if we don't, over time, these might start to unpeel, and that would not be a very good function. Not bad. Okay, so now that these are all stitched up, I need to hammer down the stitches to flatten them out a little bit. Then I can edge bevel the back. Then I can burnish these, get them all nice and smooth. And then finally I can skive down the thickness of these to thin them out a little bit. That's the plan. It feels pretty good. Now I'm going to mark the lines where we need glue. I'm going to draw some stitch lines. Go ahead and round off the corners now. I'm really liking this red leather. I mean, the python's cool, but the red is really doing it for me. I just finished burnishing this top here, so I think we're ready to apply our glue. Okay, so there is a bit of a trick to this. It's all about lining up the bottom corners. So you just gotta be extra mindful here of lining up perfectly that bottom corner and this bottom corner. Now I want to make sure that these are perfectly level, because you don't want one half sticking up more than the other half. It makes it feel uneven. There we go, that feels pretty good. Same here. That feels pretty good. Now I'll go ahead and just really squeeze. Now that these are placed, I'm going to squeeze these really tightly to really lock in that glue. This is hard to sew. There's a reason why I don't often work with new types of leather, and it's because they're untested. And this leather, while beautiful and very cool, it's definitely tough to work with. It's so papery and flaky. I mean, in the end, it looks okay for a card holder. But the amount of wrestling that I had to do with this and the scaliness just fights the stitches, and the stitch line doesn't really sit as cleanly as I'd like because the stitches and the scales were really battling with one another. I think in the end, I probably will not work with Python leather again. I'm glad it worked out for this project, but this is definitely going to be a one and done. But it does look cool. I mean, I can't deny it looks cool. Thanks for watching.